Today we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. The reason there's a formula is because not all quadratic equations are factorable. They won't work out nicely and they'll result in really messy decimals. And nobody likes decimals in this case. So quadratic formula is the way to go when things do not factor. The quadratic formula is a really long formula, but we're going to go ahead and get it written down. So it's negative 1b, you can put parentheses around that, so negative 1 times b plus or minus the square root, big old square root, b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. For the quadratic formula, it's important to note that you always need to make sure that your problems are first set equal to 0, just like when you factor. You have the x squared term first, the linear term second, and the constant at the end. So that's just your number at the end. So really important to remember that. I will rewrite the quadratic formula, but I'm not going to rewrite this one in each slide, so make sure you have that one down. Our first problem we're going to talk about is already set equal to 0, which is great. You could try to factor it and it may work, but we're going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula says negative 1 times b. Since b is negative 4, we'll write that down first. And I'll go ahead and write down below it what we plugged in. And it's supposed to be b in parentheses squared minus 4 times 6, because that's a, times negative 112, because that's c, all over 2 times 6. The way that I do this is I use the order of operations, and I do everything under the radical first. It's almost like it's in parentheses. Since we know that this information is not being affected by the radical, you can actually go ahead and work that out at the same time. So I'll go ahead and do negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4, and 2 times 6 is 12. And work out all this stuff inside the radical. Some people will break it down and make it easier. So they'll do 4 squared first, which is positive 16, making sure you're using your parentheses. Then we can do 4 times 6, which is 24, times 112, which is 2688. Since you have a negative times a negative, you get a positive. To solve for your answers, you keep going. You do 4 plus or minus. You do 16 plus 2688. Which is 2704. 2704, you're going to go in your calculator and you're going to try to see if it has square root. It does. It's 52. So what you do is you go ahead and you rewrite your x equals as 4 plus or minus 52 over 12. You're going to branch off and you're going to find 2 separate answers. The first answer you add, so you do 4 plus 52, which is 56 over 12. And the second answer you subtract. That's what that little underline means. So 4 minus 52 is negative 48 over 12. That reduces to negative 4, so one of your answers is negative 4. The other answer you can leave 56 over 12, or you can go ahead and make it a decimal or reduce it, which is 4.6 repeating. I'll take either answer. The cool thing about the quadratic formula is it can be used to solve any quadratic equation as long as it has that equal sign once again and it's equal to 0. So if you're having trouble factoring, it's a good option for you. Let's try another one that's not set equal to 0. So 3b squared, 7b plus 3 equals 9. A lot of people are tempted to label this A, B, and C, but it has to be set equal to 0, not equal to 9. So in order to be set equal to 0, we have to first take away our 9, because 9 and negative 9 cross out to get me 0. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Since 9's a constant, I have to take it away from the 3. Make sure everything else is in the right order. So the b squared is a. Well, the number in front of b squared is a. The number in front of b is b. And the constant is always the lonely number, which is c. Then we plug it into our quad formula, which is negative 1 times 7. Because that's our b, plus minus the square root of 7 squared, because that's our b, minus 4 times 3 times negative 6, because that's our a and our c, all over 2 times 3, which is our a. Should get negative 7 when we multiply, and positive 6. 7 squared is our 49, and 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 6 is 72. 2 negatives make a positive, so it's positive 72. If you add 49 and 72, you'll get 121. You check in your calculator to see if 121 has a square root. Since 121 does have a square root, go ahead and we'll put that up here. We can write out x equals negative 7 plus or minus 11, because 11 times 11 is 121, and do our two answers. One is plus, one is minus. Negative 7 plus 11 is 4. 4/6 will be fine. You can make it a decimal or 2/3. Either way, any of these answers will suffice. And then you have negative 7 minus 11, that's negative 18, over 6, which is negative 3. So your two answers are 4/6 or negative 3. Everyone should be remotely comfortable with setting equal to 0 since we've already done solving by factoring. Sometimes you have problems though, such as this one, that are set equal to 0. That's great. And our next step we think of is to go ahead and label it and plug it into the formula. Well, there's only two terms here. We have the 5x squared and the negative 7. Following our template, 5 would be the a. Since there's no x, b in this case is technically going to have to be equal to 0 because there's 0 x's. And c is your constant. So there's 0 x's, so b is equal to 0, c is equal to negative 7, and a is equal to 5. We can plug this into our quad formula. So we're going to plug in all the b's as 0, all the a's as 5, and all the c as -7. 0 times -1 is 0. 2 times 5 is 10. Go ahead and work those out right away. 0 squared, or to any power, is always 0. 4 times 5 is 20, times 7 is 140. 2 negatives make a positive. Now, it's interesting to note, 0 plus 140 is 140. Try to work out the square root of 140. So when you go on your calculator and you try to take square root of 140, and it comes out to be a decimal, 11.83. Now, since this does not have a perfect square, sad face, it's actually okay. We just stop our answer right here. So our answer is 0 plus or minus the square root of 140 over 10. So only if it has a square root do you keep going. If not, you would stop. Right, let's try one more just to make sure we really understand what we're doing. For this particular problem, we need to set it equal to 0. So we bring this over. It doesn't matter where you put it because it can't be combined with this or with this. When you write it out, you always want to put your squared first, your v, and then your constant. So I'm putting c for constant, but you can put number. So that goes first, second, third. So v squared goes first, negative 2v goes second, and negative 99 goes third. Then we can put invisible 1 in the front, so we have a is 1, b is negative 2, and c is negative 99. We're going to plug in negative 2 for all our b's in parentheses. When you go to work this out, you're going to get your positive 2 on both the top and the bottom. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 99 is 396. 2 negatives make a positive. If you add that up, you get 2 plus or minus square root of 400 over 2. We check to see if 400 has a square root, and it does, and it's 20. So it's 2 plus or minus 20 over 2. We can put our final step towards the top of this. So 2 plus or minus 20 over 2. Work out your two answers. So 1 is 2 minus 20, and 1 is 2 plus 20. So 2 plus 20 is 22 over 2, which is 11. 2 minus 20 is negative 18 over 2, which is negative 9. You now know how to do the quadratic formula and solving by factoring. So remember, both options are yours to choose from.